You wake up at 6 in the morning to an alarm you hate. You drag yourself out of bed, get ready in a fog, and commute to a job that drains you. 8, 9, maybe 10 hours later, you come home exhausted. You scroll through your phone, watch something mindless on television, and then you sleep. Tomorrow, you do it all over again. And the worst part? You feel guilty for being tired. You feel like a failure for not having more energy, more ambition, more success. But here's what nobody tells you. The problem isn't you. The problem is that you're playing a game where the rules were written before you were born, and those rules weren't designed to help you win. They were designed to keep you exactly where you are. Think about the system you grew up in. From the moment you could walk and talk, you were placed into an education system that taught you one primary skill above all others: obedience. Sit in rows. Raise your hand to speak. Follow the schedule. Don't question the curriculum. Get good grades not by thinking critically or creating something new, but by memorizing what you're told and repeating it back on a test. The structure of traditional schooling wasn't designed to create independent thinkers or entrepreneurs or people who challenge the status quo. It was designed during the Industrial Revolution to create factory workers. People who could follow instructions, work in shifts, and not ask too many questions. The factory owners needed a compliant workforce, and the education system delivered exactly that. Fast forward to today, and even though most of us aren't working in factories anymore, the programming remains the same. You're taught that success means getting a degree, finding a stable job with benefits, working your way up the corporate ladder, and retiring at 65. That's the dream they sold you. But let's look at what that path actually delivers. You take on massive student debt to get the degree. Then you enter a job market where wages have stagnated for decades while the cost of everything else, housing, healthcare, food, has skyrocketed. You get the job, and sure, it's stable, but stable also means you're trading the majority of your waking hours for just enough money to cover your bills and maybe, if you're lucky, take one vacation a year. And here's the really clever part of the system. They don't just take your time and energy. They've built an entire consumer culture designed to take whatever money you have left. You're exhausted from work, so you deserve a treat, right? A new gadget, a streaming subscription, takeout food, fast fashion. You're not just working to survive. You're working to consume. And that consumption keeps you working because now you need next month's paycheck to pay for last month's treats. The system has turned you into a hamster on a wheel. You work to earn money to buy things that give you a brief moment of happiness, which fades quickly, so you go back to work to earn more money to buy more things. Round and round it goes. And if you try to step off the wheel, if you try to question whether there's a better way, you're met with fear. Fear of losing your health insurance. Fear of not being able to pay rent. Fear of being judged as lazy or irresponsible. This is what I mean when I say the system is designed to keep you average, working, and consuming. It's not a conspiracy in the traditional sense. There's no shadowy group of villains twisting their mustaches and plotting your downfall. It's more insidious than that. It's a system that evolved over time, shaped by corporations that profit from your labor and your spending, politicians who benefit from a population too tired and distracted to demand real change, and cultural narratives that convince you this is just how life works. But here's the good news. Once you see the game for what it is, you can start playing it differently. Breaking out doesn't mean you have to burn everything down or move to a cabin in the woods. It means understanding the rules and finding the gaps, the loopholes, the alternative paths that the system doesn't advertise. Let's start with the biggest trap: trading time for money. Most people are stuck in this model. You have a job, you work a certain number of hours, and you get paid a certain amount. The problem is that your time is finite. There are only so many hours in a day, and you're already selling most of them. This model has a built-in ceiling on how much you can earn and how much freedom you can have. The people who break out of the system understand that wealth isn't built by trading time for money. It's built by creating assets that generate income without requiring your constant presence. This could be a business that runs with or without you, investments that pay dividends, real estate that generates rental income, digital products that sell while you sleep, or skills that allow you to earn significantly more per hour of work. Now, I know what you're thinking. That all sounds great, but I don't have the money to invest. I don't have the knowledge to start a business. I'm barely keeping my head above water as it is. And that's exactly the position the system wants you in. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, when all your mental energy is consumed by just getting through the day, you don't have the bandwidth to think about building something different. So the first step to breaking out is creating space. Space in your budget, space in your time, space in your mind. And this is where things get uncomfortable because creating space often means making sacrifices that go against everything consumer culture has taught you. It means looking at your expenses and cutting ruthlessly. Not forever, but for now. It means recognizing that the new car payment, the bigger apartment, the constant dining out, these aren't bringing you real happiness. They're bringing you temporary comfort while keeping you trapped. When you reduce your expenses, you reduce your dependence on the paycheck. You create breathing room. You buy yourself options. At the same time, you need to protect your attention. The average person spends hours every day on social media, watching television, consuming content that's specifically engineered to be addictive. Ask yourself honestly. How much of your free time is being drained by activities that give you nothing in return? What if you took just 2 of those hours every day and invested them in learning a high-income skill? Coding, copywriting, video editing, sales, digital marketing. Skills that people will pay serious money for. In 6 months of focused learning and practice, you could transform your earning potential. But most people never do it because they're too exhausted from work and too distracted by designed addictions. Here's another piece of the puzzle. Debt is a tool, but consumer debt is a trap. The wealthy use debt to acquire assets that appreciate or generate income. They borrow money to buy real estate or invest in businesses. The returns on those investments exceed the cost of the debt, so they come out ahead. Meanwhile, the average person uses debt to buy things that lose value the moment they're purchased. Cars, electronics, clothes. This kind of debt doesn't build wealth. It destroys it. Credit card companies and car loan providers aren't offering you money out of generosity. They're profiting massively from your interest payments. Every dollar you pay in interest is a dollar that could have been invested in your freedom. Then there's the myth of the 40-hour workweek. We treat it like it's a law of nature, but it's not. It's an arbitrary standard that became normalized during a very specific period of history. And for many people today, it's not even 40 hours. It's 50, 60, sometimes more when you factor in commutes and the expectation that you'll answer emails at night and on weekends. But productivity research shows that most people aren't actually productive for 8 solid hours a day. They're productive for maybe 3 to 4 hours and spend the rest of the time looking busy. The 40-hour workweek isn't about maximizing output. It's about control. It's about keeping you at the office, keeping you tired, keeping you dependent. People who break out of the system often do it by rejecting this model entirely. They become freelancers or contractors who get paid for results, not hours. They build businesses that leverage automation and outsourcing. They design their lives around productivity and freedom rather than face time and appearances. And yes, this requires risk. But here's the thing. The traditional path isn't actually safe anymore either. Your job can disappear tomorrow. Companies downsize, industries get disrupted, automation replaces workers. The idea that you can just keep your head down, work hard, and be taken care of is a fantasy. The social contract between employers and employees has been broken for decades. Pensions are gone. Loyalty isn't rewarded. You're expendable. So if the traditional path doesn't offer real security, why not take the risk of building something that you control? Let's talk about consumption, because this is where the system really has its hooks in you. Every day, you're bombarded with thousands of messages designed to make you feel inadequate, to convince you that you need the next thing to be happy, successful, or attractive. And it works. You see someone on social media with a new phone, a fancy vacation, a perfect body, and you feel like you're falling behind. So you buy something to keep up, to signal your status, to feel better about yourself. But that feeling fades fast, and the cycle starts again. This is called the hedonic treadmill, and it's one of the main reasons people stay trapped in jobs they hate. But here's a radical idea. What if you stopped trying to keep up? What if you opted out of the status game entirely? What if you measured success not by what you own but by how much freedom you have? How much time you control? How little stress you carry? People who embrace this mindset often discover something surprising. They're happier with less. Not because poverty is noble, but because they've stopped chasing an impossible standard and started focusing on what actually matters to them. Time with family, pursuing passions, building something meaningful, experiences over possessions. There's a growing movement of people who are figuring this out. Financial independence enthusiasts, digital nomads, entrepreneurs, minimalists. What they all have in common is a rejection of the default path. They've looked at the system and said, "No thanks. I'm going to design my life differently." And the blueprint is actually pretty straightforward, even if it's not easy. Reduce your expenses. Increase your income, ideally by building skills or assets that scale. Invest the difference in things that generate passive income. Protect your time and attention fiercely. Learn continuously. Take calculated risks. Surround yourself with people who support your vision rather than pull you back into the default path. Now, I'm not going to tell you that breaking out of the system is simple or that everyone can do it overnight. There are real barriers. Some people face systemic disadvantages based on where they were born, the color of their skin, their gender, their health, their family situation. The playing field isn't level. But here's what I am saying. The system you're in was designed with specific outcomes in mind, and those outcomes don't prioritize your freedom, your happiness, or your potential. Once you understand that, once you see the game clearly, you have a choice. You can keep playing by the default rules and hope things work out, or you can start writing your own. The first step is awareness. You're already there if you've made it this far. The next step is education. Learn about money, investing, business, psychology, productivity. Not the surface-level stuff they feed you in school, but the real knowledge that wealthy and free people use. Read books. Take courses. Find mentors. Then comes action. Small steps at first. Maybe you start a side project. Maybe you cut one major expense from your budget. Maybe you commit to learning a new skill for an hour every day. These small actions compound over time. 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, you'll look back and barely recognize the person you were. But you have to start. And you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. Breaking out of the system means going against the grain. It means your friends and family might not understand. They might think you're crazy for leaving a stable job or for living below your means while everyone else is upgrading their lifestyle. That's the social pressure the system uses to keep everyone in line. You have to be okay with being different. You have to trust yourself more than you'd trust the conventional wisdom. Because the conventional wisdom is what keeps people trapped. The truth is, you have more power than you think. The system is strong, but it's not all powerful. Every day, people break out. They quit soul-crushing jobs and start businesses. They move to lower cost of living areas and cut their expenses in half. They learn high-value skills and double or triple their income. They invest wisely and build wealth that gives them options. You can be one of those people. But it requires seeing the game for what it is. It requires rejecting the narratives that keep you small. It requires believing that you deserve more than just getting by, more than just surviving until the weekend, more than just counting down the years until retirement. The problem isn't you. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You're not failing. You're just playing a game that was rigged from the start. But now you know. And knowing is the first step to changing everything. So what are you going to do about it? Are you going to keep playing by the old rules, or are you going to start writing new ones? The choice, as it always has been, is yours.